Okay guys, we are in the end game, our second to last country episode. For the last time, to summarize in the fastest way possible, if Africa was a family, you know, you have Team Jollof west side, you have Team Piri Piri east side, you have the Amazigh north side, you have Jungle central side, you have oh boy here we go south side. But then like within these five main neighborhoods, you have the core families of the Bantus, the Nilotes, the Khoisan, the Afro-Asiatic mixed up between them, but then they also divide up into like English, French, Arabic, and Portuguese blocks. Madagascar is technically related to Indonesia, but Mauritius is like super Hindu, but like Cape Verde has like really good looking people, but like South Africa is mixed so much they literally created their own whole new race of people. And the thing is, in Africa, they all agree that no matter how good or bad, tame or crazy, rich or poor, destructive or industrial, or fun or sad things may get, they can handle it because this is their home. And when it comes to Zambia, they don't just handle things. Hoo, they prosper.
It's time to learn geography now!
Hey everybody, for the 192nd words are weird. Second time, I'm your host Barbs, and oh, what's this? You can get Geography Now merch like this Geography Now mug and Geography Now t-shirts or whatever at geographynow.com. Oh, and who's hiding behind the mug? Mini Barbs! That's right, I am now a figurine. You can get these at figgyme.com. And remember, Mini Barbs is not a shelf figurine, he's a travel buddy. You're supposed to take him around the world on your travels, take a picture with him at some cool spots, send them to me, and I post them on social media. That's how it works. Mini Barbs, the world's best travel buddy. Oh, and one more shout out. See this really cool shirt I'm wearing? Thank you, Ruba from the Sudan episode, for making these shirts, and you can get them at unityshirtsshop.com. Support her business. So in Zambia, they have a catchphrase, Zambia Kuchalo, which means Zambia to the world, meaning something like, hey world, look at me. It's my turn to tell my story. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. Zambia Kuchalo with the map, shall we? Formerly known as Northern Rhodesia, Zambia has gone through a lot in the past century or so. And to really understand it, you gotta look at the map. So let's go David Livingstone this place. You'll understand that reference in a sec.
First of all, Zambia is a landlocked country located in the southern part of the African continent surrounded by 8 other countries. Some say the country kind of resembles the shape of a flying butterfly or an ear. I think it kind of looks like a sleeping ET. But anyway, it's all because the DRC just had to have that Congo pedicle or Katanga boot that protrudes about 120 miles or 200 kilometers right into the middle of Zambia. And all the way over here at the very bottom corner, they have a near quadrupoint Namibia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. And as of 2021, the Kazungula Bridge was finally complete, connecting them to Botswana, crossing over the quadrupoint for the first time. It was a big deal. In any case, the country is divided into 10 provinces, with the capital and largest city, Lusaka, located in the south-central part of the country. After that, the second and third largest cities are Ndola and Kitwe. However, in terms of transport, Lusaka has the busiest airport in the country, followed by Livingstone, Nsimon, Mwanza, Kapwepwe International. The country has a plethora of roadways that reach virtually every province of the country. However, more interestingly, the country has 2 main railway organizations, the National Line, Zambia Railways, and Tazara Railways. From these rail lines, you can connect to the neighboring countries of Tanzania, Zimbabwe, and the DRC. Only one station in Chipata does not connect to either main line and just goes directly to Malawi and further to Mozambique. To this day, there are still a few small land disputes in Zambia. Up north by Lake Mweru, the town of Pweto sits right on the border with the DRC, who claims everything east of the Lukinda River all the way to the town of Chiengi. Whereas with Zimbabwe, they still can't agree on who gets the Sindabezi rocks in the middle of the Zambezi River. Regardless, no serious conflicts have arisen between these countries for these claims. Everything is just a claim and nothing else.
Now, in that regard, it's a little complicated, but Zambia also kind of has a little bit of a domestic dispute within itself in regards to the western part of their country. See this western province right here, mostly on the border with Angola? Much of those lands are inhabited by the Lozi people. Now, there are no distinct borders, but they generally inhabit the wide basin of the Zambezi River and established a very proudly traditional kingdom known as Barotseland, ruled by the Litunga or king.
Explain.
Okay, well, let's explain it, okay? So, what is this place? At one point, it was a protectorate under the British Empire, and before independence, there was the Barotseland Agreement in 1964 between the British government, the Litunga, and Kenneth Kaunda, the leader of the United National Independence Party of what was Zambia. I almost said Zimbabwe. I'm sorry, Zambia. Ooh, you both have Z country names. I'll try not to get you two mixed up. I know you hate that. Now, we've been through this story many times on the channel. You can probably guess what happened next. It was like,
all right. Before you guys gained independence, let's try to figure out what exactly to do.
Well, we have easier access to public service and have a more developed infrastructure, so it only makes sense to integrate Barotseland into our nation.
Oh, no. If we integrate, you have to respect our traditional way of ruling ourselves. You also have to give us a degree of autonomy.
Okay, let's all sign this thing called the Barotseland Agreement, and I'm out.
Hey, why do you keep encroaching on our lands? You're like breaking our agreement. Okay, that's enough violation. We are declaring independence!
Nope. And if you try anything, I'm bringing in the authorities to deal with it.
And to this day, this is probably the biggest controversy with Zambia. Yes, protests and semi-dialogue, semi-conflictual politicized rhetoric has been exchanged. It's a topic of some tension, but overall people are just kind of like, it is what it is. And one thing that is the famous places of Zambia. And with that, we got one of our Zambian geography peeps to explain. Take it away.
Hi guys, I'm Tombo. Welcome to Zambia. I'm going to tell you a few things about our country. First, I want to talk about our capital city, Lusaka. I was born here, I grew up here, and I'm going to tell you about some notable sites that we have here. We've got lots of art galleries, we've got markets, we've got great restaurants, we even have a national park. And there we have the famous elephant nursery where you can go ahead and see elephant mommies with their babies. And keeping up with the animal theme, we also have Kalimba Reptile Park. This place has a great huge farm where we have crocodiles, we have snakes. Lusaka also has a very interesting art scene. We have the Lusaka National Museum, we have the Lusaka Contemporary Art Center, and we have the 37D Gallery. We also have the National Hero Stadium. I would advise that you visit one of these places. I would recommend visiting some of our Sunday craft markets at East Park Mall, at arcades, at Kawata Culture Village. Take a little piece of Zambia home. We have other great places like the Shiwangandu Estate that is up north. You can see the Whaleback Mountains at Mutinondo, very, very beautiful. We have the Livingston Museum, which is down in Livingston. And while I talk about Livingston, we're going to come to the number one thing that people come to Zambia to see, the Mosio Tunya, the smoke that thunders, otherwise known as the Victoria Falls. This is our pride and glory. Everybody in Zambia loves the Victoria Falls if they've had an opportunity to see it. We share the Mosio Tunya with Zimbabwe, but we like to claim that it's ours or it's though. I really hope you enjoyed this, and I really hope that you visit Zambia one day. Come and experience Zambia, the real Africa.
Thank you, Twombo. Ooh, yeah, Victoria Falls. Ooh, I'm gonna go there in the next episode. You're gonna see. Ooh, stay tuned for that one. It's gonna be a good one. And speaking of waterfalls, we gotta move on to the physical geography segment. Let's do it. So, Zambia's land is pretty much what you would expect when you think of sub-Saharan Africa. Super rich, lush, and colorful, teeming with wildlife. But there's also a few cool special zones that they've really been blessed with. Let's explain in the motion graphic. Let's go.
First of all, much of Zambia sits on the drainage basin of two major rivers. In the west and south and center, you have the Zambezi and Kafue rivers, and the other one being the Congo Basin in the north, which the Kafue is the longest river fully within Zambia. The Zambezi River being the longest shared river in the country, which, by the way, right on the border with Zimbabwe, they share the largest waterfall in all of Africa and largest in volume in the world, Mosi Oatunya, otherwise known as Victoria Falls. These basins are generally flat and filled with lush forests and woodlands and grasslands and savannas. Then you get to the southern borders and you have the spine of Zambia in the Muchinga Mountains, where you can find the tallest peak, Mafinga Central, just at the border with Malawi. These mountains are formed by the Luangwa Fault Line, that is a smaller section of the Great East African Rift System. Otherwise, Zambia has many major lakes, the largest one being Lake Kariba, shared with Zimbabwe, but the largest lake fully within Zambia being Lake Bangweulu, which is actually a series of interconnected swamps and wetlands and minor lakes. Keep in mind, as most of the country sits on major drainage basins, this means that seasonally, many of these rivers swell up and become flooded in wet seasons, which plays an important role in their civil structure and wildlife.
Side note, a lot of my Zambian subscribers wanted me to specifically put this in the video. Their neighbor Zimbabwe likes to market themselves as the country of Victoria Falls, but the actual falls are on the Zambia side. Zimbabwe just has the view. And if you want to do the cool Devil's Pool, you know, the place that's like in the falls and you can go in it so it looks like you're about to fall off, but you're not, you have to go on the Zambia side for that. It's like the coolest thing ever. Isn't it crazy? The last two episodes are literally right next to each other geographically. Isn't that so convenient? In any case, this is the part where Noah usually comes in, but Noah is visiting his family in Iowa.
What's going on, my fellow geography peeps? A little busy at the moment, but I will catch you on the next one.
I'm gonna have to fill in for him, but I'm just saying, Noah, we're gonna get you in the last episode. Come on. Enhihua. So basically, with Zambia, it's kind of similar to what we discussed in the South Sudan episode. There's gonna be a huge emphasis on wetlands and managing life with low and high water levels. In fact, like many of their neighbors, the practice of load shedding or energy preservation hours are instituted regularly if water levels are not high enough to power hydroelectric dams. Anyway, with all of that in mind, Zambia's land is not just lush and green and watery, but it's also copper, as in they are located on the Copper Belt region shared with the DRC. They even named one of the provinces the Copper Belt province. The Copper Belt is the most mineral-rich area in all of Zambia, where many of the mines are located producing nickel, tin, and of course, you guessed it, as the name implies, copper. In fact, copper is such an important commodity that their national exchange rate is directly tied into the price of copper on the global economy. This means copper sort of puts them in a sort of privileged yet precarious position where they have to carefully navigate the country's trajectory based off of so many variables.
Such as
Like this.
Let's nationalize the entire industry. Let's privatize the entire industry. Let's nationalize 2 really big mines and the rest is privatized.
It's like an ongoing experiment to see which strategy has the best results. In any case, in 2010, the World Bank named Zambia among the top 10 performers in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index. They also host the headquarters of COMESA as a market for Eastern and Southern Africa. So basically, they are a pretty reputable and trustworthy nation in terms of trade affairs. Man, resource management can be quite daunting, right? Well, not half as daunting as the wildlife management. And with that, we move on to the animal segment with our go-to animal guy, Caleb. He's just gonna spin on in here.
Gary Hollow here. Yeah, I forgot. I don't do that accent anymore. Animals of Zambia. So, as a sub-Saharan country, Zambia is of course a hotspot for creatures. And today they have 20 national parks, with the largest being the Kafue, located in the south-central part of the country. First of all, the national animal is the African fish eagle. It was actually used as a symbol for various traditional kingdoms. And the bird also sounds like this.
We definitely know that's true, yes.
Second, just like their neighbors, they have the Big 5 species. And of course, typical savanna and wetland species can be found here as well. About 850 bird species, 240 mammals, 160 reptiles, and 85 amphibians. Basically, everything you've seen in The Lion King is pretty much here. We don't have to elaborate too much, you get the picture. What's that line that Mufasa says? Simba, everything you've seen in the animal kingdom is yours, is in Zimbabwe, whatever country.
Zambia!
And it's even home to some lesser known species like the aardwolf, the clawed frog, and the African civet. The clawed frog is also known as Paul's mom.
Caleb, 내가 클럭 프로 같아? 그럼 너는 덩키야, 당나귀야, 당나귀.
I don't know. In addition, there are a few annual bat migration in places like Fitente and Kansanka. Millions of bats fly in one place towards the end of the year, and the sight is just mesmerizing. But what's interesting is how these species have to adapt to their surroundings. Because much of the country lies in 2 major flood basins, the animals here are very similar to the ones we discussed in the Botswana episode, in which everything, the lions, elephants, and even ostriches, have adapted to the marshy wetlands and have to learn how to swim or climb trees to avoid the rising waters. Well, that's about it. A general overview of Zambia's wildlife. And just like those swimming ostriches, I'm gonna awkwardly make my way out of here.
Thank you, Caleb. You know, one of these days I want to try an ostrich egg. I've had an ostrich burger, but never an ostrich egg. I think I could eat the whole thing. Anyway, speaking of food, here's one of our Zambian geography peeps to explain more about the food. Take it away.
Hey everyone, it's your boy Tatenda.
Hey everyone, my name is Matthew, and today I'll be telling you about the delicious food we have in Zambia.
We have our national staple food, nshima.
This is a dish made from pounded maize. Interestingly, the same maize meal or milli meal can actually be used to make popular drinks such as maheu and munkoyo.
And many meals are served with side dishes and vegetables like lumanda, delele,
ifisashi, impwa, just to name a few.
Because we have many rivers and lakes, fish is a common protein and is often eaten with nshima shima.
The most common being kapenta, which are these small little sun-dried sardines, and also tilapia is very common as well.
Zambians love to eat meat. We particularly love T-bone steak, Hungarian sausage, and village chicken, not store-bought chicken, as a Zambian will be able to tell the difference.
Sugar from Mazabuka and coffee from Kasama are also very popular. Other common delicacies include ifinkowala or mapane worms. Common snacks include tuten and malala, which is cassava and groundnut.
Many say that chikanda is a food originating in Zambia and is a type of orchard root. When boiled and prepared, resembles and tastes like meat.
And the famous sweet fritters, ifitumbua or vitumbua. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you get the chance to try Zambian food one day.
Bye!
Thank you! Man, it's so crazy. I have subscribers all over the world. Like, a lot of YouTubers have more subscribers than me, but I just have better subscribers. And speaking of cool people, let's talk about the ones that live here in Zambia. So Zambia is one of the African countries that has, for lack of a better term, sort of disentangled themselves relatively well from most major predicaments post-independence, I guess you could say. From what I've gathered, it's generally pretty peaceful, and Zambia is usually seen as like the mediator between many of their neighbors, especially when there's like a war or conflict. In any case, let's see how they personally break down in the demographics graph, shall we?
First of all, the country has about 20 million people and is comprised of about 72 ethno-linguistic groups and tribal peoples, the largest of them being the Bemba, making up about 1/5 of the population, and from there the Tonga and Nyanja Chewa come in at second and third, collectively making up about another 1/5 of the population, and from there the remainder of the country is made up of the remaining 72 ethno-linguistic people groups. About 2% of the country is made up of white Zambians, mostly of British descent, with only about 1% of the population being other non-Africans, mostly made up of Asians, mostly of South Asian descent, mostly from India.
For money, they use the Zambian kwacha as their currency. They use the types C, D, and G plug outlets. I just realized that's the IATA acronym for Charles de Gaulle Airport. Not related at all. All these years of doing geography stuff has made me memorize weird things. Anyway, and they drive on the left side of the road. Language! As a former British colony, of course, English is the official language used as a lingua franca amongst the over 70 mostly Bantu-based ethno-linguistic people groups. Nonetheless, the government has designated 7 Zambian languages to be used as regional lingua francas that are allowed to be taught in schools alongside English. They are Bemba, Kaunde, Lunda, Luvale, Lozi, Nyanja, sometimes Nyanja Chewa, and Tonga. Not to be confused with the country of Tonga. Check out that episode if you haven't seen it yet. It's a really fun one. Faith-wise, under the Constitution, Zambia is officially a Christian nation with somewhere estimated over 90 to 95% of the country adhering to the faith, mostly Protestant. The interesting thing is Christianity came almost exclusively through missionary work in the 19th century, as it was incredibly difficult to access the landlocked regions that even the British Empire was a little hesitant to encroach upon. Oh, that was a run-on sentence. I am the king of run-on sentences. I gotta figure out a way to write my scripts better. Scottish physician and missionary and explorer David Livingstone, probably being the most well-known figure who spoke the Swana language. He mapped out the Zambezi River and was the first European to see Mosioatunya, or Victoria Falls, hence why there is a town named after him. For what it's worth though, Zambia has a very unique structure in the way how it manages itself. Like many other African nations, Zambia is at the crossroads of always trying to compromise the government with the traditional monarchs and chiefdoms. About 90% of the country falls under some sort of monarch or chieftain system. In fact, when you apply for some kind of registration card, oftentimes you might be required to put the local monarch or chief's name on the application from where you live. Many of these people hold the title of king or queen or paramount chiefs. Women can also be chieftainesses, such as Senior Chieftainess Nkomeshia of the Soli people, the original inhabitants of Lusaka, fun fact. And interestingly enough, Zambia is one of the few countries in Africa that has, how can I put this, a more kind of sort of syncretic, harmonious view of race relations that doesn't let the bitterness of past colonialism define or obstruct them?
Such as...
Okay, so for example, for the first time in all of Zambian history, this guy, Peter Fisher, or Chindeli Chaka Lunda, became the first white Nyamwana, or chief of the Lunda-speaking people in the Mwinilunga district in 2016.
Oh, really?
How did it happen? So although chiefdom is usually hereditary, there is a clause in their practice that allows it to be passed down by bestowment, as it was done to Mr. Fisher, obviously, as his family had unwavering support for the Lunda people since the 1870s.
Wait, Really?
Yeah, generation after generation of loyalty to these people. So yeah, after like over 150 years, I guess the Lunda people were like, yeah, they've earned it. Not only that, but after the death of President Sata, Guy Scott, his chosen vice president and caretaker, was required to serve as acting president until the next election, which in a rare occurrence made him the first white president in a post-independent democratically elected African government. So it's like Zambia is open to working with anyone as long as they are cool and have proven that they are Zambian and loyal to Zambia. That's really it. In any case, as mentioned, there are too many ethnic groups to cover in Zambia, but let's do like a quick overview of the largest ones. The Bemba people, the largest group in Zambia. They have their traditional ruler, the Chiti Mukulu, or the Great Tree Paramount Chief. They are famous for their Ukusefya Pangwenya ceremony held in August. It is basically like a reenactment of a 600-year-old migration period of their ancestors to Zambia. The Tonga people, the second largest group. These are considered the first Bantu tribal peoples that entered Zambia. They are supposedly the best cattle herders and they are very skilled craftsmen, and they celebrate the Luindi Gude, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, probably not, which is like a Thanksgiving ceremony to honor the ancestors and the good rains of the season. The Chewa people, cousins of the Bemba, known as the Mask people. The two largest clans are the Piri and the Banda, so you'll see a lot of people with those last names, Piri and Banda. As the nickname alludes to, they are famous for their masquerades. And also the Kulumba festival and the Gule Wamkulu. They love their masks and they love their dances. And now we reach the Lozi. This is one of the more popular tribes of Zambia that you'll see in like documentaries. First of all, they are more closely related to the Soto and Swana peoples of Botswana, and they have a deep connection to the Zambezi River. They are famous for their Kuomboka, or moving out of the water ceremony, in April. So during this ceremony, it's really cool. So the king, or the Litunga, is transported from his dry season palace to his rainy season palace, but they got to do it on this really crazy, intricately designed boat, all wearing traditional attire, and it's a huge deal. It looks amazing, and I want to see it someday. It looks so cool. Next, the Ngoni people. These people are basically cousins of the Zulus in South Africa, and they are, like the Zulus, warrior peoples. They have the Nkwala ceremony. I think I pronounced that right. The seed that clicked, I don't know. Nkwala ceremony to celebrate the gathering of all the Ngoni peoples, marked by dancing and warrior performances as the paramount chief blesses the season's first harvest. Next, the Tumbuka people. These are like the poets and storytellers with a very rich history in oral tradition. They are known for the Vimbuza healing dances, which are part of the traditional practices, and they have really cool traditional clothing with chitenge fabric and symbols and patterns all over the place. The stylish poets, I guess you could say. Oh, so we just covered like the largest, like what, 5 or 6 groups? I don't even know what we did. Can you imagine if we tried to cover all the other remaining, like what, 65 plus other ethno-linguistic groups? It would take a long time. But one thing we do have time for is the sports part with Art. So with that, here's Art, obviously. Take it away, Art.
Hey guys, welcome to the sports part. My name is Art, as you know, and this is Tarchin. What do you have to say about sports, huh?
I will eat your soul.
So in terms of sports, Zambians have competed on the international level in many events: boxing, rugby, golf, judo, and so on and so forth. Speaking of boxing, to this day, they have 1 silver and 1 bronze medal in the Olympics. The bronze in the men's flyweight boxing in 1984, and the other silver is in the men's 44-meter hurdles in 1996. Nonetheless, it is no shocker, just like so many other countries, Zambians' favorite sport is soccer or football. They take it so seriously that when a major match is going on, the streets become empty and the businesses halt and stand still to watch the games. One of the saddest memories they have is when the country mourned the loss of the Zambian national men's football team, who were tragically victims of the plane crash in 1993. Among the deceased were the beloved Godfrey Chitalu and Kalusha Bwalia. Bwalia, or the Great Kalu as he was known, led the national team to beat the world champion Italy at the 1988 Olympic Games in Seoul. On a side note though, one of the best memories they have is when the national men's team on the team Chipolo Lapolo, say that 3 times, or Copper Bullets, won the Africa Cup of Nations in 2012 against the Ivory Coast. Everybody who saw it remembers exactly where they were and what they were doing when that match happened. Zambia is also the winner of the most Kosafa Cup tournaments with a total of 7 wins. Even their women's team, the Chipola Polo, or Copper Queens, made their first appearance in last year's FIFA Women's World Cup with eyes on captain and star player Barbara Banda. So there you go! Zambia looks like they know their way around the sports. So next time you cheer for them, make sure you say, "Zambia, girl!" You don't have to add the girl part, but unless it's a Shapola La Polo team, right? And guys, here's something you might not know about me.
Guys, this is my final form. I hope you like it. No! Get out of here. Hey!
My suspicions were correct. Thank you, Art! So as you can tell, Zambia is definitely not shy when it comes to a little competition. Or superstition. To explain a little bit more about that and the culture of Zambia, here's our favorite female token host, Random Hannah, to explain.
Hi guys, I'm back.
Take half a step back. And there you go.
So as we mentioned, there are 72 ethno-linguistic people groups in Zambia. So it's not like there's a single Zambian culture, but there are a few customs and undertones that overlap most Zambian people's lives. For example, most Zambians that have moved out will return to visit their ancestral home village at least once in their lives, and if possible, meet the chief. Visiting a chief is a highly formal situation, and it's customary to greet them with cupped hands while slightly bent, and do not turn your back on the chief. Superstition culture is also pretty huge in Zambia as well. Vendors will peacefully leave their products out overnight, as a common saying here goes, thieves will turn into goats. And it's not uncommon that most Zambians will be able to share a story or two about a supernatural encounter they have supposedly experienced or heard about. Like many of their neighbors, many of the people groups in Zambia practice the marriage dowry, or lobola, to the bride's family. This is my favorite cultural tradition. I just think that the men in America need to step it up. American men need to be gifting me livestock, horses, cows. I've always wanted a pig, but I think it's really cool to be gifted livestock. What?
Ian gave you his love.
He did. It's enough. Anyways, otherwise, in a contemporary sense, Zambia has also been quite a patron of the arts and cinema. Art schools like the Cyrene School of Painting and Salisbury School for Sculptors were developed in the 1940s under British colonialism. During this time, tavern art, or art on the walls of businesses, became very popular. Most murals depict bold images of folklores and local stories. In the 70s, the art scene was growing faster, and artists like Yolton Lakito and Godfrey Seti are the once considered Zambia's most famous painters. And then Henry Tayali came on the scene with hauntingly powerful pieces depicting Zambian life with bold themes yet colorful tones. And on top of that, Zambia has also developed their own small film industry. In fact, during the colonial times, Zambians, or Northern Rhodesians at the time, were considered the second largest concentration of cinema goers outside of South Africa. Originally, Zambia was a hotspot for educational videos and documentaries. Zambia Information Services was commissioned to make documentaries every 2 weeks in the 70s. In 1999, Zambia's first major film studio company, Ambush Productions, was established, and since then, notable acclaimed films like Choka or Get Lost and Imiti Kula have been released. And finally, did you know Zambia once tried to build a space program? Well, it was more like one guy, Edward Makuka Nkoloso, the director of the National Academy of Science and the University of Zambia. He sought to accomplish launching a rocket to the moon and later Mars. He even had his own training facility for what he called astronauts. However, due to lack of funds and nobody taking it very seriously, the program was unfortunately dismantled. Now that takes us to our music segment. Is it Keith? Is it not? Good luck.
Hello everyone, I'm Zenke, and today I'll be talking to you about Zambian music. So first of all, there's many traditional styles of music in Zambia, and they all have an ensemble of these four instruments: the drums, also known as ngoma, marimba xylophone, the thumb piano, also known as kalimba or bira, and the kalumbu, which is a one-stringed instrument. Zambia is well known for the kalindula, which is bass guitar music, which is like the heartbeat of Zambian music. The kalindula blends traditional rhythms with contemporary influences and sort of represents the golden past of Zambian music. Some of these artists include Pike Chishala, the Amayenge Band, and the Mashombe Blue Jeans. In the 1970s, Zambia was famous for the Zamrock genre. This is like Zambia's special, unique contribution to global music. This genre fuses psychedelic rock with local, traditional sounds, reflecting the country's dynamic cultural landscape. Zamrock necessitated due to a national drive called Zambianization, which was to encourage local sounds in the newly independent Zambia. Zamrock has been sampled by contemporary artists like Travis Scott, the American rapper, in his song Sirens. Modern Zambian music often fuses traditional beats with a pop style and is well known throughout Southern and Eastern African regions. And of course, with music, you must have dance. Each one of Zambia's 72 ethnic groups have their own traditional dances. We have everything from the Kalela dance of the people of Luapula province. The Muba is the main dance of the Lenje people. The Ndendeule is an initiation dance of the Chewa people, and so many others. There's too many to list. In any case, I hope you have a chance to visit Zambia, learn some songs, learn some dance moves.
Thank you! Nah, seriously, Keith, I'm gonna get you back for the last episode, Zimbabwe, I swear. You're gonna do that episode. Ooh, guys, can you believe it? We're almost done with this episode. Oh my goodness, there's only one segment left to do. It's crazy. Oh my god, we're almost done with the 192nd episode and there's one left. I can't believe it. You know what the last segment is. Let's do it. The Friend Zone. So as you can kind of pick up from what we've said before, Zambia is kind of more or less kind of like a mediator between a lot of their neighbors. I mean, today they have diplomatic relations with 164 nations and they host 43 embassies within their own country and 36 of their own abroad. Zambia is kind of stable, and when it comes to diplomacy, stability definitely works and helps out.
As a former British colony, of course, Zambia has ties to other nations within the Commonwealth and still takes part in Commonwealth activities, such as head of government meetings and the Commonwealth Games. This, of course, means that Zambians have relatively easier access to the UK, and many go there for education, and many might have family there as well. India also has a very close, cordial relationship with Zambia, as Kenneth Kaunda, Zambia's first president, is quoted for saying India's freedom struggle was what inspired him to formulate his own nation's freedom movement. And since then, the two have been cooperating in everything from trade and investment deals to education and aid programs. Closer to home, though, Zambia has a sort of mediator role for many regional conflicts in sub-Saharan Africa. For example, they facilitated talks between the MPLA and UNITA for the Angolan Civil War, where the Lusaka Protocol was signed. They also were the mediators for the Second Congo War, which involved 9 African nations, and eventually came to Lusaka once again and signed the Lusaka ceasefire agreement. Bringing it even closer to home, though, as the host of the SADC and COMESA, Zambia is an important player in the southern African region. It really depends on who you ask, but many Zambians will probably say one of their 4 neighbors, Botswana, Malawi, Zimbabwe, and South Africa, are the closest friends. Malawi shares the same Chewa people as Zambia's east side, and the two share so much culturally, they are even the only 2 countries that use the kwacha as their currency. Botswana and South Africa are very close friends as well. Their heads of state have made numerous visits. Of course, they co-commissioned the Kazungula Bridge that we mentioned before, which was a big deal. Meanwhile, South Africa is not only Zambia's #1 trading partner, but Zambia also supported South Africa's National Congress during the apartheid years. But finally, we get to their twin brother, Zimbabwe, the 2 Rhodesias. They were even at one point joined together with Malawi as the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. Zambia and Zimbabwe not only share a lot of the same ethno-linguistic people groups like the Tonga and the Lozi, but they have seen virtually every chapter of history together and have usually supported each other despite their governments having slightly different ideological differences on how to approach certain issues. Like, the only one time they had a slight hiccup in relations was when former Zambian President Levi Mwanawasa criticized Robert Mugabe, calling him a regional embarrassment. However, eventually relations thawed, and today the two still consider each other very close friends.
In conclusion, Zambia is very much like Mosi Oa-Tunya or Victoria Falls. It's bold, it's colorful, it's powerful, but it's also in the middle of Africa, landlocked, and you gotta earn it to see that beauty. And with that, guys, our last and final 193rd country episode, the conclusion, the end of the country episodes. Zimbabwe is coming up next. It's gonna be a big one because I got a big surprise for you guys. Stay cool, stay tuned.